Alright, so welcome to, I guess, like the 7th or 8th pugilism video. This is a little different video than before. I'm going to talk about a few of the things that I see professional boxers make, and then also amateur street fighting and just the common Joe. Speaking of which, let's talk about something. Okay, don't be one of these people that thinks because you study a little bit of pugilism that you're ready to fight somebody in the ring. All right, it doesn't work out. Don't go challenging your favorite boxer, or do this kind of like fan. I'm such a fan. I want to fight you. It's not going to go well, and that's because a huge amount of their success is dependent upon the amount of time that they're practicing, keeping their body in shape. They just have a certain level of awesomeness. Now that being said, our target audience here is to be better than 99% of the people that you're going to meet on the street. And in which case, if you practice pretty regularly, you're going to build up your own awesomeness. Even just like if you're just like a fat father, a weekend warrior, you can eventually build yourself up to handle other fat fathers at the Walmart, right? It's all about relative comparison. Who are you most likely to run into situations with? If you're no longer an 18 to 20-some-year-old and you're not hanging around neighborhoods or in malls with other groups, they're going to look right past you. You're not going to be anything to them. Just try to avoid some of these situations I see where like some white-haired guy tries to take on somebody in their 30s, or somebody in their 40s tries to take on teenagers or something. It's not a wise idea, because it takes a long time to build that kind of awesomeness up. First of all, your individual skills, your defense skills, they have to be built up. A lot of people, when they see people like Ali and Ken Norton's fighting in his unorthodox style, moving around like that, and Ali, he's doing this, or George Foreman, he's crossing like this and letting people beat on him. They don't realize those people can afford that unorthodox stance because they're getting beat up all the time in a ring by other professionals who are putting their arms up and wailing on them like that. Unless you're doing that, then don't act like you can. One of the advantages of Kung Fu or karate systems in general is that they're based on a predatory kind of motion. You're not supposed to stand there and wait for somebody to attack you. You're supposed to be on the offensive. Refer back to our very first video here. So because you're supposed to be on the offensive, other side, just put it on my desk. Because you're supposed to be on the offensive, you really don't have to worry about too much of getting hit. Of course, you do need to spar, but you're not needing to take just bone-crunching hits all the time. If you are wanting to work to that level, then you have to spar more often. All right, now some of the mistakes I see, whether they're professionals or individuals. Well, individuals, I see them doing a lot of this kind of stuff. But with professionals, I see them doing things like up, down, same side to side. Okay, same this, right? Any kind of rhythmic thing. Now, a lot of great masterful fighters still allow that to go on. I was watching Ali fighting Ken Norton, and Ken Norton kept dipping down and coming up. Well, all he had to do was change up his rhythm and throw high, so Ken's dipping down and it's at a half step, right? And in music you have half notes, right? So when this one goes down, that one's coming up already. Right, but if you do 1 and then 2, he's already dipped down. He's come back up. So never get into a place where you are always at this same rhythm. So like if you're in tight, that's rhythmic, right? So you want to change up. You want to change up height. You want to change up angle, right? You want to step to the side. You want to come from below and go up high. Sometimes you even want to throw 2 at the same time. And sometimes you want to throw none when they're expecting it. Sometimes you can just go like that and they think that something's coming and then they move to the other side. Anything that throws them into a state of confusion is a good thing for the pugilist. Right? Now, what are you going to do if you're a pugilist and you have somebody throwing a shoot? One of the big mistakes I see people doing is they try and hammer fists or haymakers from places of no position, no power. You need to develop a little bit of ground game, a little bit of stance game. Right? If they go shooting in, you need to be able to shoot that foot back and box from a low stance. You can't box from up here anymore. They're going to throw you on your head. So, and because you're not going to be wearing a helmet in real life, that's a very dangerous situation. That could be knockout right there. So you have to be able to fight what I call, well, so if I'm going back and forth like this, which is 95% of fighters, they're straightforward fighters. That includes karate guy, Muay Thai, whatever. I call that one-dimensional. All right, now two-dimensional will be, I can go here, I can go over here, and I can go over here. I can change the angle a little bit, but it's still kind of on this flat grid, so I call that a two-dimensional fighter. A three-dimensional fighter means I can do all that, and I can go high, or go low, and go high, and come back low again. So constantly changing the elevation, and of course four-dimensional fighter is a person that can either go to the ground or they can even flip upside down. That's a person who controls the entire space, and it's like a big cube of space around the fight. That's the person who thinks about the fight in terms of not two dots in the center of the page or in the center of the canvas, but as the entire empty space, who's controlling most of the space. There are two thoughts in that direction, by the way. There are people who like to control the center and radiate outward, and there's people who like to own all the canvas, like Muhammad Ali, right? He's kind of a guy who dances all around the entire place. Whereas a person like George Foreman would prefer to dominate the core and radiate outwards. And you just need to know what your personal preference is. Me, I think there's more power in controlling the axis of the center, but then you've got to be used to being a straight up and down guy. If you're going to be one of those that's using an unorthodox stance, or even kind of like a drunk, kind of like throwing off timing, then you really actually need to be used to going all over the place, into the corner, up against the ropes, on the ground. You need to be used to all that because you are not holding the axis, the center axis. You're not that kind of fighter. You're the kind of fighter that wants to kind of be amorphous and all over the place. It's just a matter of personal preference. There's nothing saying one is necessarily better than the other. It depends on all the context. Every dog has their day, and anybody can win in any context. It's sort of like, this is a good jab, that's a good jab. They're both good jabs. One moved the center more, but the other one you could throw a lot faster, right? You can't throw these rotational jabs as often because it requires a new set of energy. If you start thinking of things in such like tools, okay? What's better, a crescent wrench or needle nose pliers or vice grips? Those are all great tools, but they have different specific tasks. If you try to cut something, sometimes side cutters are better, sometimes bolt cutters are better, sometimes the little cutters that come with pliers are better. It just depends on the task for which you're assigning that particular move or technique that you are wanting to attain. I watched, Muhammad Ali in the third fight with Ken Norton. He just leans against the ropes, and Ken's going to work on him like it's a workout. He's punching, and he's going here, and he's doing one-dimensional fighting. So he's right across, and it's all this. Okay, so Ali just leaned back and took it. And then when Ken would come off, he'd do a little shimmy, a little dance, kind of show off that it didn't hurt him. What he really needed to be doing was coming and changing the angle and shovel hooking to those floating ribs. If he'd have broken 2 to 4 floating ribs, Ali wouldn't be breathing so easy. And if he's not breathing so easy, then he can't make fun of him. He can't demoralize him. And in the art of war, morale is an incredibly important part of fighting. Now, some of that morale will come from your energy. Some of it will come from all the practice you've had. And that's again, you're working on your own, you're building up. Nobody outside knows that, right? You meet some guy at the Best Buy or Walmart, and he starts running his mouth. He doesn't know all that iceberg behind you. He only sees the tip. Right now, if you wear that energy strong, and you have a lot of the killing energy radiating off of you, most people will be dissuaded just by your presence. But this guy might not, because he might be a moron. So you go to meet this guy in a self-defense kind of situation, kind of an ad hoc street fighting situation. You need all that to come to bear right in the moment. That's why you got to keep it in shape. and that's why you got to keep everything up. But even then, you need to be very careful, not so much about overconfidence, but about the assumption that what I plan to do is exactly what's going to happen. That's not necessarily the truth. And that's where I think the advantage of the counter fighter is the strongest over the offensive fighter. And it's a situation where a little bit of yin absorbs all that yang. Now, the other guy, he's naturally going to be mad at him. He's going to be he's going to be making a lot of threats, posturing, maybe even shoving. Okay? All that can help you to establish your self-defense posture in the eyes of the law. And then secondly, you can actually siphon some of his energy out of him and some of his confidence as you're building your own confidence up. And then you're no longer going to be overconfident and brash, but you're going to slowly build it to the floor. And when you build it, it becomes like an avalanche. That's where you get your awesomeness from. So some of your confidence is going to come from your energy, from your pre-workout and having a good body. Some of it's going to come from the awesomeness from your technique. And some of it is that you're going to naturally get to the point where you radiate a little bit of energy. Now, if you aren't very young, your testosterone levels may not be the kind that you want to presume upon the potency of a single strike. And so the rule, and this is our third thing for today, is to punch in bunches of punches. Don't punch, don't throw like a single one and then you think, oh, I got him good. That one surely dizzied him. Well, so what? Throw a number of them, step back, and measure. But you wait until you've drawn them in to the point. And he's probably going to throw haymakers, right? He's not a scientist. You're the scientist. And because you're the scientist, you have to figure out what is his behavior going to indicate. Is he going to go chimp on you? Or is he going to be crazy psycho drunk? What kind of spirit is he bringing to the fight? Or is he actually a fighter himself? If he's a fighter, all the more reason to slip even from a counter fighter to a defensive fighter, right? Or if you're going to stay a counter fighter, slip to a defensively oriented counter fighter, because you can split counter fighters into two groups. And when you do that, now you are working with a more subtle level of energy. Now everybody's circling, you're seeing everybody measuring off, and that's a good time to use things like faking the distance, kind of flip jab, just kind of see how he responds to a flip jab. Right? It's non-committal. Right? You go throwing a big one, that's committal. Same thing, if you run a shoot, I hate this that they teach this in MMA, they just immediately throw a shoot. It's not a good idea, because if it's a high shoot and the guy knows what he's doing, he can wrap around the head. If he knows how, he can just fall straight back and suplex your head into the ground. If you throw a low shoot, not only does he have access to the back of your head if he knows how to use this or to create spacing and drive it straight down, but of course he's got the knee coming up. He can still wrap and choke and like twist over. There's a lot of ways to deal with a shoot. The advantage of the shoot is that the person does it quickly and it's unexpected, and 9 times out of, maybe more, maybe like 29 times out of 30, the guy stays upright and tries to get leverage. You can't get leverage on that because the body is lower than your center of mass. So if they work on your response time of getting lower, if you have a person who is starting to fight with you and you're in a self-defense situation and they appear to be that level of scientist, the words that you use become your main form of jabbing and crossing and finding holes in their defenses. They may not actually want to fight. They may feel compelled or instigated. Perhaps a female is instigating them. Perhaps the law is instigating them. Perhaps their pride is instigating them. If you can find a way to burst through that, I watched Adam Kokesh do something like that, because Adam Kokesh was a Marine, and this guy had been instigated. He was a Marine. He was instigated by some woman who said he's insulting the Marines. They took it outside, and Adam Kokesh talked to him until the guy gave up before a fight actually occurred. Probably this guy would have beat him up. He was a big guy. But Adam Kokesh reached through to his brain in that moment. He kept calm. So even though a female was instigating the fight and using that biological advantage she has in order to instigate what she wants, which is to see testosterone at work, that's a biology thing. I'm not judging her. I'm just saying that happens a lot. Adam Kokesh, by using his words, was boxing the guy's brain. And then, before the fight even got going, he he changed the energy structure of the fight. Now if the guy takes a swing, he's not going to be full-hearted. He's not going to be full of passion and heat. His strikes are going to be limited and weak. And then Adam has a fighting chance against a guy who probably outweighed him by 50, 60 pounds. All right, so the weapon that you need to always have in the back of your mind is, how can I penetrate through their being? And sometimes that means with a punch. And other times that is actually with your words or even just your gaze. Sometimes you just look at them and penetrate them. I did that at a movie theater. And I just let the guy know inside of himself, like, oh, I'm going to punch you straight in the throat. I didn't say it with my words because that would be a threat. And then he would have wanted to fight for sure. I just looked at him a certain way, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was in a defensive mode, but I was still standing just like this. Right? And he was just running his mouth. A lot of guys just want to run their mouth. A lot of guys just want to talk about how much they're going to fight, but they're not actually really wanting to fight. In very few situations will they push it all the way to that situation. But you need, in order to give that kind of gaze, that kind of look, you need a whole world of backbone to you. Like all this training that you had comes forward to, again, two things. Your bloodlust or killing energy, which is part of your warrior skill, and your awesomeness, which is part of your self-mastery. If those two things can combine, you can be victorious in almost any situation. And hitting the bag, playing chess, all of it becomes one sense of pugilistic technique. Now, in the next video, we're going to continue on. We'll be at the school again. We'll continue on the unorthodox stances. We'll talk about a little bit of footwork, a little bit how to move to adjust positioning. We're going to get a little bit specific, rotate in, and I'm going to show changes in positioning and posturing. Hopefully, you can ask certain questions on this video, like what if you're in this situation, what if you're in this stance, what if you're already limited in such and such a way, and if I get those, I can address them in that next video. Thank you very much. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.